Okay, so what did I do? Or what am I doing here? I actually haven't done it yet, so this could go wrong on camera and it'll be pretty cool. So I built a little bit of a jig here. I mean, not for nothing, my garage is air conditioned. I'm only TIG welding. I'm not making a lot of sparks. And it's really not a big deal. So what I did was I took some framing lumber and I ran it through my joiner. I ran it through my planer. I squared it all up nice and square. Ran it through the table saw, what have you. And I have a pretty decent square 90 here out of wood. Now, hopefully it'll last long enough to do this project. So what I'm doing is, the other thing I did was I screwed these nuts on. These are definitely going to have to be Loctited or what do you call it? Peened. Not peened, yeah, staked, what have you. So, so you can see how it's like spinning like that. So I gotta back these off. I gotta back it off. I have to tighten it up with a screwdriver. These are not done yet, so it's not really an issue. So clamp that in there like that. Actually, I intentionally did that so I could eyeball up that it's straight, and put this clamp in here like this. Sorry, I'll turn it in a second. Put the clamp in there, pushed it into the corner of the piece to make sure it's nice and tight. Okay. Give it a little whack on the table to square it up. You can see how that is. And that's relatively square. It's straight enough for a government job. Now I have these. Now one side of these is nicer than the other side. So I'm actually going to put the nicer side up. These are shear cut. Actually, I take that back. So these are shear cut. I'm going to put, actually in this particular case, so there's a real twink on this. So I'm actually going to put that down, and I'm going to put it to the back, where this is the back piece. So I'm going to spin this around. I'm going to square it up on, square it up here. I'm going to take my speed square. So one of the things, check this real quick. Yeah. So one of the issues is that these aren't all the same length. That's my fault. I wasn't paying attention when I was facing them off. So those aren't totally square, or I'm sorry, they're not the same length. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave myself a little bit of space in here, and it's a nice place to weld. So I can put a nice decent weld in here. I'm just going to eyeball that up, but there is a pretty decent amount of gap around this thing. So what I should do, it's believe it or not, it's almost exactly a 1/16 of an inch too big. So if I had what I ought to do is take a piece of welding wire and stick it in there, 30 welding wire. This is 16th welding. This is 16, but it's not 16. It's actually, it needs 30 to be square. So to make sure it's square this way and this way, I'm gonna have to put some filler in this. I don't necessarily want to go. I don't want to necessarily not put filler in it. So we're going to see how this goes here. My welding leads are literally like 2 feet too short. Let's purge. Now remember, I turned that off. I should probably throw some more heat into this thing. And I don't really feel like it. That's loose. Now, once I get 3 sides tacked, I'll be okay. Okay. We're gonna have to check this thing for square. So take that off, stick that there, and we're gonna check it for square. I might not. That was something I was worried about too. Heck, oh, that's just a booger. There we go. So that's there. Let that go down. Alright, so one of my game plans here is to put little feet on these. I'm just going to glue feet to the bottom of it. I'm probably just going to put, I have some rubber feet, some cheap rubber feet I was going to stick on the bottom of them. But I could probably fix this just by whacking it on the belt sander real quick, because there's a little booger on the bottom. Yeah, I can actually see the booger. So that's it. Now I just have 5 more to do. I'm not sure. I guess I could just go right around it. That might be an interesting practice piece. So I'll just go around it. I was going to use my MIG welder to do this. MIG welder would probably be better, but I don't need to. And then, so if push was to really come to shove, and I was having a real problem with them being wobbly, which I don't think I'm going to, I could put them back on the shaper and smooth them out that way. I could mount them in the shaper this way and then have them get shaped up that way. But I don't need to do that. So I'm just going to take and weld around the top here. I'm actually going to have to get another welding rod, because this one is not long enough. Actually, it's a shame I don't have a rotary table. Pretty cool project for a rotary table. Whoop. Okay. Now that I burned the lens on my camera, there it is. Good enough for government work. That fucker's hot, and it's nice and heavy. I'll whack the bottom of this. There's a couple little boogers on the back side of this. That's why it's wobbling. Yeah, see how the wobble went away? That's it. 4 more to go, or 5 more to go. Just take your time and weld away. Okay, because I like jigs. I like jigs and I'm cheap. I bought this whole box of quarter 20 panhead Phillips screws at my local supply house, which sells nuts and bolts and hardware and shit by the pound. So these are 1.5 inches long. I only need them to be about 1 inch. So what I'm going to do, what I did here is I took this piece of 3/4 inch plywood and I drilled a series of holes in it. I need 12 of these to be about 1.25 inches, they're 1.5 inches. I need them to be a little bit less than that. The length isn't critical, not even remotely critical, but they're too long. Now they're just a little bit too long. So I built this little jig here out of a piece of plywood, drilled some holes in it. 1/4 inch holes. I'm going to run these in relatively evenly. Whoops, that one's a little sloppy. Flip around so you can see what I'm doing. If I only had to cut one, I would just, cut it with a hacksaw, but I got to cut 12 of them, plus a couple extras. That sure as hell beats sitting here with a hacksaw and a die. Actually, you can see this one hole's loose and backed out, but that's okay. Nope. Now, so just because I want to show that what I'm doing here, so that's going to go in there like that, that's going to go in there like that, that's going to go in there like that, and then it's going to have plenty of room for a nut. I have some nylock nuts that I might use on these. Probably. Alrighty, so we're back here. Mr. Mike made a jig. So these are the tops of the top of the stands, and what I did was I actually had sprayed all these things down with WD-40. WD-40 is paint safe ish. You can't paint right over it, even though I've seen people do it. It drives me nuts. So I just put some lacquer thinner, in this tray here. I just put some lacquer thinner in a tray, brushed them all off, blew them off, and because these are bare metal, completely bare metal, I'm going to be using some of this cheap ass Rust-Oleum brand self-etching primer. Whenever you're dealing with bare metal, you got to use self-etching primer. So basically, I mean, you've seen one guy paint something, you've seen them all. I'm not going to paint the whole shaft. I am going to paint a little bit of the shaft. I'm not going to paint the whole thing. And that's that. And then it can sit there and dry. I'd originally wanted to paint them in the holder, but quite frankly, that's the only board I had. It's not long enough. So that's that. And then I'll just put 2 coats of this stuff on, let it dry for an hour or 2, and then I'm gonna go over to my cabinet of color, or cabinet of spray can shit, and see whatever I have in the cabinet, and that's what these are getting painted. I don't really care what color they are, I just don't want them to rust. I've got a whole bunch of cans of shit over there that I'm probably never going to use again, so these things may end up like engine blue, or Ford engine blue, or Chevy orange, or I don't know, something I bought a can of the crap for, never used more than 2 squirts out of it, and then that was the end of it. And I said, I'm not going to spend, they're not getting powder coated, they're not going to get nitrided, they're not going to get blackened. This actually would be a good, this would be a great nitride, or just black phosphate, whoops. Be a great black phosphate experiment. That one's still a little wet. But I want to get these things painted as soon as possible, because it's insanely humid out, and this is raw bare metal, and it's going to rust instantly. Alrighty, so guess what? They're black. The reason I did them black was because I had this can of Krylon laying around. I don't know how old it is, so fuck it, I just used that. There we go. So they're upside down right now. I'm painting the bottom. I'm gonna let them dry for a couple hours. Those are all, well, these are basically done. I just got to let them sit for a little bit longer, and then these I'll set, I'll come back to these after lunch or what have you, and flip them over and paint them, and then we'll put them all together, and then we'll do a ta-da, this is what happened. Well, here we are. I now have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of these. Why don't I have 6? Well, I don't have 6 for a couple reasons. One is I only had 10 bearings. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 bearings. And I actually left one of the bases at the shop. So there we go. I did notice one screw up on my part, because I always screw something up. This screw is a little low, so I can't get the full height out of it. That's as high as it'll go. Not for nothing, that's way higher than I'm ever going to use it. The most likely place it's going to be used is all the way down anyway, so it doesn't really matter to me. Now, why do I have all these? Well, I have all these for one major reason, and the major reason is this tool isn't actually finished yet. So these are just the bases of the tools. These are just the bases of the tool. Eventually, my game plan is to link these together thusly. Okay. I'm going to build a base for these. I saw a guy do it on the interwebs. This is my original, by the way. And so the idea here with this tool is this. Okay. To be able to do this with a rod. Now these aren't adjusted at all. Okay, so you have to take that into consideration. It's actually running downhill a little bit. No, we're not. It's even. Okay. So this is the game. Okay. This is what it's supposed to be. Now, I can have 2 of these, like this. Alright, so there's one there, one there, one there. And the torch in the middle, heating it, right? Or if I want this, very interesting. So they can be either like this, or without that one there, like that, or without this one here, and just run it like that. Now they do need a little, I think they need a little adjustment here and there maybe, but for the most part these are working exactly the way they're intended. So let me grab another example here. Okay. Now I know this one's not spinning, but it doesn't really have to. All it needs to do is stay there, is to create the V. See that one there, see if it spins. Yeah, that one spins. They're not all perfect, that I'm well aware of that. What I may do in the future is I messed up some of the bearings, pushing them in and out multiple times. I may order another set of bearings, and I may redo the wheels at some point. I also may readdress this whole placement. But for right now, the way it's set up, you know, we're in business. This is exactly what I wanted. As a matter of fact, I couldn't ask for more. Oh, by the way, spinning glass that fast in front of the torch will result in a catastrophic failure of your part. So mostly this is what I'm looking for, and that's exactly what I needed. That's exactly what I got. So, and quite frankly, I am over the moon with how well these turned out. I also kind of like the ability to twist these a little bit, so you can kind of control it a little more. Yeah, this is absolutely perfect. As a matter of fact, I'm going to take these into work tomorrow and show them off that this is what the goal was. And that's the goal right there. I mean, I couldn't ask for a better project the way this came out. As a matter of fact, I might take them in the house and show them to my wife. So the long story, or the short part of the story, is don't make what you can buy, but if you got to make a whole shitload of them, or if you have to buy a whole shitload of them, sometimes it's better to make them. And in this particular case, I think I made out. Yeah. There you go. 3 parts. Oh, so what's the tally? What's the total? I'm about $300 in materials. You saw all the materials I took out, plus the bearings, which were like 10 bucks. And about 20 hours in time. Now, you have to take into consideration time in that I had no idea how to operate any of this equipment. I did a couple things that really, at the end of the day, I probably should have done differently. But yeah, I think I did. I think I made out. You know, considering these are 150 some bucks a piece. So I'm 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in. You know, so I think, you know, I think I made out. You know, there's well, let's see, 2, 4, 6, 8. There's $1,000 worth of tools here if I was to buy them. Because you have to take into consideration shipping, and nobody cuts your break on shipping anymore. And there we go. Cool beans.